everyone, and we're here at the Book Dragon today with author C.A. Asbrey, who's told us we can call her Chris. Thank you for that, and welcome to the Book Dragon, Chris.
Hi, lovely to meet you.
And Chris has got her book tour on this week that we're going to be talking about a little bit today in an interview. So, Chris, can I start by asking, you've got 6 books in your Innocence mystery so far. Can you give our viewers an introduction of what to expect from the series?
Yeah, it's it's basically predicated on the fact that the Pinkerton Detective Agency were the very first to employ female detectives who worked completely equally to the men. They did all the same roles, had the same skills. In fact, they were more advanced in some skills than in the men in some areas, such as working undercover, and they were highly successful. And not a lot of people know about the work that they did as spies and bodyguards and in crime detection. So I really thought it was about time somebody wrote a book featuring these remarkable women. But more than that, the ones that I've seen, they're either just love interests or the sidekick to a male detective. And I wanted to put her front and center and not be either of those things. Or if she was a love interest, it's actually just a side plot to the actual skills that she had.
Oh, that sounds absolutely fantastic. I didn't know about them myself, so it's great to learn that part of history. So, is that what inspired you to start writing the Innocent Mystery series to try and get that message across to people?
Yeah, well, I actually found out about them. I joined the police a very long time ago. In fact, I can now safely say, well in the last century, joined the police. And the woman that trained me, she she was a very funny woman. Our training sergeant was a very funny woman. She had great stories about the exploits that the older women that had got up to when she was young. And that sort of basically took us back to World War II or just afterwards, the stories that she would tell of things that they'd got up to. And it got me wondering about when did women first join the police and when did women get involved in policing. And because I was never taught any of this stuff in school, even though I'd been interested enough to actually go and join the police, and nobody'd ever taught me it. So I decided to do a bit of research, and the furthest back I could get was the Pinkertons. There were in the UK, they largely all joined round about World War One to make up for male absence. The Sûreté in France, they did employ women slightly earlier than Pinkertons, but they were more prostitutes who have been used as just as a honey trap. They weren't properly trained detectives. The first fully fledged law women were the female Pinkertons.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. So, the series is set in the second half of the 19th century. Is this a period of history that you have particular interest in?
Yeah, I've always been quite interested in history in general, but the Victorian era I find quite fascinating because it's very much a cusp between much more old-fashioned times and modern times. When it even becomes, there's a lot of conflict in that era between religion and science, between women trying to do things for the first time, break out of traditional roles. It it surprises us now to realise that it was actually a very young and thrusting and modern era, because we look at it back and it looks quite old-fashioned and fusty and prim to us. But at the time, the average age was only in the 30s. So the young were driving a lot of change, who were fed up with the old ways. And so it was a period of dramatic change that's probably only comparable with what's going on now. Technology would go out of fashion within 10 years in a way that probably is comparable to now. So it was a period of great change, a great social turmoil. People were coming much more from the rural areas to work in cities. That meant that people had greater anonymity, could disappear, they could break social norms in a way that they couldn't in the village, where they'd be sent to Coventry or shunned that they would in villages. So, and people used that to hide and commit crime. That like the first serial killers come up in that period for that very reason socially.
Mm.
So at the same time, science was also being used to, for the first time, try and catch these people. And it's about trying to capture these early bits of science that were used to try and catch criminals, solve crime, try and prevent crime, and trying to set it in a way that sounds interesting and amusing, and in a way that people can relate.
Yeah, I mean, there's some fascinating points you make there. I'd never really thought about the comparison between then and now, but yeah, that's, really interesting to consider. So, of all the characters you've created, Chris, who's been your favorite one and why?
I think one of my favorites is Vida, which was she's not a main character, but she's a woman who actually trained, supposedly was an earlier Pinkerton from American Civil War times, and she actually trained the main protagonist, Abigail, the main protagonist in the series. But she's a woman of many skills. She was an early doctor. She worked for the Pinkertons. She had been a spy during the Civil War. She's living openly as a lesbian. She's just living a life that doesn't let anyone tell her what to do or how to do it, and she's very open about it. There was a movement about at the time which was about the about modern dress and dressing comfortably, and these women would dress in trousers. They would refuse to wear corsets. They would cut their hair short many times, and they lived very openly and looked very different. That was an incredibly brave thing to do at the time, let alone all the other things that she actually did. But she's based on a real woman who did all those things,
Oh,
who's
wow.
called Dr. Mary Edwards, and she won the Medal of Honor in America for her work during the Civil War.
Oh, that's fantastic. So, are you working on any other writing projects at the moment, Chris? And if so, would you like to tell us a bit about them?
Yeah, at the moment I'm working on a new series. That series is complete.
Yeah.
Um, that's a series of 6 books, and I've completed that series. At the moment, I'm working on another series. This one again is set in the 19th century, and it's set in Glasgow, of all places. And it's the reason I'm not from Glasgow, which if you probably can't tell, but the Scots would be able to tell that I'm not from Glasgow. But the reason I've set it there is it's the earliest modern police force in the world. It predates
Right.
the Met by 29 years.
Hmm.
At the earliest modern detective department in the world.
Right.
Long before the Met even existed, they had a detective department. And the idea of policing before was to catch people as they committed crimes or they were running away from it. The move to actually trying to detect them and track them down was quite a revolutionary new idea at the time, which to us that seems very common sense, but people didn't really think about that before. And the other reason that I want to try and capture that is that nobody's written about this before. This is another thing that nobody's written about. Lots of Victorian murder mysteries, and that's basically what each of my books are: self-contained murder mysteries within an anthology series, if you like, as the Innocence mysteries are. But the reason I like to write about these is, again, there's lots written about Edinburgh and Dundee and Aberdeen and other cities, and I think the reason for that is that people can go there now and they can look at the architecture, and it's still there. You still see like the 16th century, 18th century Georgian buildings there. But in Glasgow, they were all wiped out during the war. It was every bit as historic as all these places, but it doesn't spark people's imagination in the same way because it's not physically there for them to see it.
Mhm. Oh, that's
So I'm trying
fantastic.
to recapture all that bit that was wiped out as well,
Oh,
and
that's
trying to
great.
write a bit of, again, another bit of unknown history, because I do a lot of research. I'll even research what stationery they use. But the reason I'm doing that is I like to do something that's a bit different and try and set it in a different way. But it's all set within the realms of possibility. A lot of the crimes are often based on real crimes, but actually switch it up a bit so that true crime aficionados wouldn't be able to guess who the murderer is. It's based on it. It's putting new flesh on the old bones, if you like, as opposed to just digging the old bones up.
That's a great idea, and I've certainly learned something new because I didn't know about the Glasgow Police Force, the detectives predating the Met. So thank you for that.
That's all right. You're very welcome.
So thanks for your time today, Chris. It's been absolutely lovely to interview you. And if people would like to meet you in person, they can do so tomorrow, which is Saturday, June the 10th, between 2 and 4 p.m. and pick up some of your copies of the Innocent series.
Thank you. I'll be there. I'll see you. I'll see you on that day.
Yeah,
Sit behind
I'll
the desk.
see you then. Thank you for your
Thank
time,
you.
Chris.
Thank
Take
you. Bye bye. Bye bye.